Hi guys, I'm Lee, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the process of false convictions. To understand the process, you first have to define false convictions. False convictions are basically when an innocent person is convicted for a crime that they haven't committed. And so this basically normally starts out when a crime is committed. Let's, for the sake, say that someone's been killed. And yeah. So, there's our base. The crime. From there, generally, you are going to have DNA evidence, or not sometimes DNA evidence, but just evidence is collected from the scene of the crime. For the sake of this example, we're going to use just crappily drawn blood sample in a test tube with a magnifying glass, yeah. So, let's color that kind of red. So, blood under a magnifying glass. So, that is our evidence. Evidence can be anywhere from DNA to footprints to witnesses even. Oh, why am I writing witnesses, actually? Just evidence. So, from there, someone is then generally found as a suspect. So we are gonna use blue as our main guy. Oh, you can't see that. Purple. Oh, it's because I didn't. Yeah, let's go back to blue. So, this is our main guy. He's being arrested because he's been suspected of murdering this poor soul over here. And our policeman in his police hat taking him off to jail. Alright, from here, like I said, they are generally taken to jail, and don't want to leave our little suspect alone, so we're gonna give him a buddy. And this is his cellmate, who is sad because he's in jail. But the cellmate isn't always very reliable. Oftentimes, this cellmate, cellmate, will use our suspect's trial as an advantage. This is called jailhouse snitching. Through this, our little snitch over here will go and tell the high judge that our suspect, Mr. Blue over here, is actually confessed to the murder of our poor little dead guy over here. So, from there, this has given the judge incentive to try this guy, basically. And so, from there, this testimony that our cellmate has given can be used against our suspect. So, let's Draw the trial over here. Really dinky looking trial. Sorry. Not the same color either. Oh well. So, that's Mr. Judge up there, and he's like, "You did it." And our poor little dude gets sentenced to jail for a long time for a murder. Even though our suspect, for the sake of this purpose, we are assuming that he is innocent. And, well, stick figure, he is innocent. So, then, from there, he gets convicted to life in prison. One door, and a barbed wire fence, 'cause why not? Prisons are scary. So, that is just one pathway that can happen in this time span. From a crime being committed to evidence being found to a suspect being found. But yet, pay close attention in our next part to our police officer, because that's what I'm going to talk about next. So, I'm gonna bring it on over here, and we're going to talk about police coercion. Police coercion is basically the police force you to do something through, obviously, force. So, let's say, also, this doesn't just pertain to police, this also pertains to investigators. So, our little blue suspect, he hasn't been convicted yet, he's not in prison. He's sitting there, waiting, and he is being interrogated. Let's see, he's got a chair. And let's make our interrogator purple. Our interrogator is over here, basically yelling at our guy. Not always yelling, actually. Intimidating Mr. Blue Suspect over here to basically confess to the crime. And this is another form of coercion. I don't have enough room to draw this out for you, but there are many tactics that interrogators use to get the suspects to confess. And these tactics include minimization and maximization. Minimization is basically making the whole process, or the whole issue, seem like it's a lot less worse than it actually is. So it's kind of like saying, hey, we know that this crime has been committed, we don't think that you've done it, but we still need you to give a kind of like a testimony, per se. So, basically, that's minimization. Through maximization, though, what the interrogator is doing is basically telling the suspect that this is a lot worse than it actually is. They're scaring the suspect into confessing. A lot of the times, police and interrogators actually use fake evidence to get the suspects to confess. So, that's more or less how police coercion works. But there's still more tactics to that. Also, with these tactics, if the suspect still won't give a confession and is still going and saying, I haven't done this, I haven't done this, I haven't done this crime, the interrogator can become very irritated to a point. And this can escalate to more or less torture, in a sense. This can be starvation. That's blue. Oops. Starvation. Use an apple as an example. Nope. Going to the bathroom. Really poorly drawn toilet. Nope, can't go to the bathroom. And sometimes it actually comes to the point of actual physical harm. So, beatings. Let's draw a police baton for that. I think that's what a baton looks like. Oh well. So, those three things can escalate from that if our suspect still doesn't confess. But, also, a lot of the times they will actually not let the suspect sleep. So those are 4 things that are generally used. Starvation, not able to go to the bathroom, not letting them sleep, physically harming them. These are the forms of torture that is often used in interrogations during while interrogating difficult suspects. But eventually, the suspect breaks down to a point where our suspect actually does confess. And so he just confesses because they don't want to stand to... They don't want to put up with the punishment anymore. So they confess. Through this, they are generally then falsely convicted, depending on the situation of their trial. Obviously, every trial is different. So, our suspect is again, back over here with being convicted. So, over here, that is really large. Over here, being convicted. And our judge, wagging fingers. So, more or less, it's kind of a form of self-incrimination. But it's also through the use of police brutality and police coercion that is causing this. And eventually, they all end up back in the same place. All back in prison. It's more or less a never-ending cycle. And it's become such an issue that it's gotten to the point where we have about 2.3 to 5% of prisoners are actually innocent. And out of all the prisoners, that doesn't sound like very much at all. But when put into perspective, 1% of prisoners is about 20,000 people. So, roughly, 2.3% would be around 45 40 to 45,000 people, and 5% would be 100,000 people. So to really put this into perspective, that is more or less what's going on. And this is the process of false convictions. A crime is committed, evidence is collected, suspects are found, suspects are put in jail or tried or put into interrogation. Sometimes the cellmate will come forward and basically snitch on them. Also, there is a lot of other secondary confessors. There's a lot more factors here that cause false confessions than what I'm discussing. There's faulty DNA analysis, like faulty forensic odontology analysis. There's so much, but this is still happening. And this is just to brush the surface. This was more or less just kind of a brief overview of this. And I hope that this helped. I definitely tried my best, so hope you enjoyed it.